Hi guys, Mrs. Angel here again. So I'm going to show you how to do a winter landscape scene, and we're going to be using marker and turning that marker into kind of like a watercolor technique by using just a brush or a Q-tip with some water. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and again you're going to want to use pencil. I am going to use pencil in this part because you don't want to see my black lines, is we're going to do a landscape. So it's going to be, you're going to need just kind of a line in the front, which is the foreground, which means things are in front. And you're going to want to do another line kind of here for the middle ground, and that would be the background. So I have just 2 lines on my paper. And the next thing I'm going to do is I want mine to look kind of like a sunset. So what I'm going to do is, again, hopefully if you have some watercolor, washable markers, Crayola, or anything that just doesn't say permanent works amazing. And I am going to make kind of like a sunset. So I'm going to make a little U shape, and I'm going to kind of go to that line, and I'm just going to color it in a little bit. I might leave a little bit empty in the middle because when I use the water, it'll blend that color in. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some orange coming out of it. So I might do something like this, where it almost looks like sun rays, or you're starting to make kind of like a flower. And again, you don't have to worry about it being completely colored in. And then I might take some red, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to kind of go out, and I'm using warm colors because it's a sunset. I'm going to do that. And I am actually working on a little bit harder of paper. It will work on just regular white copy paper. Drawing paper works better. I know you can also find drawing paper at the dollar store. You can find markers at the dollar store, watercolor at the dollar store. But again, use whatever you have at home. If you don't have markers, you can use color pencil, and you'll just have to layer the color pencil. The same with crayon. But after you have your sunset ready, you are going to take your brush, and you have water on it. And I'm going to start with my yellow and just kind of go around. And I'm going to dip my brush in the water. And then I'm going to start with the orange now. And I'm just going to kind of brush it outward, get some more water. And you can see it's starting to blend. And then again, I get my brush wet again. And I'm going to go out to the edges, really kind of getting it wet and moving that water around and that ink. You can even bring some into the sun if you want. All right. Now you also do want to make sure you're not going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth so much that you have a hole in your paper. But this is how you want to get that effect for right now. So this is going to be a winter scene, so we are going to have some snow and leave some white. But we also need to add in like a little bit of color back here, again, by using those markers that we were using. And we're going to work in the middle ground, which is right in here. And I'm just going to add some lines of the color. And then again, maybe I want to add a little bit of yellow. And then that's when you take your brush with water and you just kind of go over those areas. And notice I am leaving a little bit of white. I'm not going over the whole entire thing. I'm just going over the parts that I put the lines. Okay, so eventually I would let that dry, and I'll show you the next step. So now we're gonna work our way down to the foreground, which is the part that's in the front. And I'm going to probably add a little bit more color. So again, I'm gonna outline this shape, and then I'm gonna make a line down here. And I am gonna add a little bit more color in here. And again, I'm using those warm colors. You might want to add in a little bit of purple, you can add just to add a little bit more shadow. So I'm going to add some orange in here. Add a little yellow. And then what you could do, if you wanted, is to take a purple and just kind of go over that line a little bit, add a little bit in there. It'll just give it a little more depth. Again, right there. You can even add a little shadow in there. Now again, the same thing. We take our brush and we are just going to go over that area and kind of blend those inks together. Same thing here. And again, I know it doesn't take place of watercolor paint, but if you're at home and this is all you have, it definitely works. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we need to let this completely dry before we can do anything else. All right, guys, so once it's dry, sometimes your paper tends to bend. You might need to leave something on top of it to flatten it out, but because of time's sake, you're gonna either need a black marker, a black Sharpie, or a black colored pencil. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put a nice black line here. And I'm gonna make some lines up here to make it look like there's trees in the background. So I'm just gonna make a bunch of lines going up, kind of close together. And then I'm just gonna kind of dot up top. To look like there's just kind of a cluster of trees kind of in there, okay? So that's kind of how I'm gonna give it the effect that there's some trees back there. Once I'm done with that, I can then again use my brush or Q-tip, and I wanna make sure I don't have a ton of water on there, but I just want to hit up, really just touch up the tops of the trees to kind of blend them together. You might just want to run your brush down the bottom of the trunk of the tree, just again to give it that watercolor look. All right, after we've hit this up with water, we might want to just do one last touch and just run our brush or our Q-tip along the black line, again, to give it that watercolor feel. And then what we want to do down here is we want to add a fence. So what I'm gonna do, and you might want to draw it out with pencil first. So we have that line that we drew down here. And I just might want to make another line, maybe a finger or two up. And you want to go kind of in line with that curve that you had. And then you'll outline. And again, we're using washable marker so that we can get the painterly feel. But if you don't have that, you can again use whatever you have and you would just color it in. And then I'm gonna make the posts. And again, I'm just kind of making them. Some might be a little bit crooked, some might be a little bit bigger, because it could be just a rickety fence. Then I might want to add some little lines for like grass or a little bit of some brush that's kind of sticking out. And then again, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to maybe add a little bit more black underneath here, maybe another line, because I am gonna wet this and I do want it to look like there's a little bit of a shadow on the ground. So I'm gonna take my brush again, same thing. I'm gonna go over that line. And again, kind of quick, nothing crazy. Same thing with this one. You just wanna use the tip, because if you go and you use the whole brush, it'll make a big old mess. And again, you're just gonna go right on over those fence posts. And then you can go over your little grass or your brush that's there. Now we're gonna wait for that to dry as well. All right, friends, so once that is dry, you are going to start making your tree. And you're gonna probably wanna do this with pencil first. So in case you do kind of make a mistake or something, you can erase it. But I just kind of start with a line and I go up. And from there, you can add your branches, and you want your branches, guys, to go up. Okay, don't have your branches come down. They can kind of, you just want to kind of keep going out. Once you have your basic tree, you can then take that black marker and go ahead and trace over it. And then you can thicken up your tree trunk by kind of going over it again, making it a little bit thicker. All right, so a trick of the trade is kind of to flip your paper upside down, and you can continue to draw or make another layer, make it thick. And this is how you can continue to add more branches. And you'd thicken these guys up a little bit by adding another line. And then from there, you can begin to add tinier branches kind of coming out of your tree. Now my marker's starting to fade, so I'm gonna grab a different black marker that's washable. And now I'm gonna start adding in more branches. And again, when I flip it upside down, I can just pull my paper out, pull my lines down towards me. And remember, in the winter, a lot of the trees lose their leaves, except for the pine trees. So this tree is gonna be bare, meaning there's no leaves on it. And again, you can just kind of fill it up. And then on some of them, you can just, again, you can thicken it up. You can add another layer to your tree trunk, kind of make it come down here. And then kind of look at it and see, does it look full? Do you need more? You don't want it to be completely colored in and scribbled in. All right, so once I flipped it back over and I see my tree and it's looking pretty good, again, I can add, some more of that, brush that's there. I can add little bits of brush elsewhere. Maybe you want to add a smaller tree here, or you want to add one that's like right here, you can go ahead and do that. Maybe you want to have, you know, just a little bit. Maybe you want to draw, you know, some more trees back here. Again, it's completely up to you what you want to do. Maybe you want to add, you know, a couple birds flying. I might add maybe one more tree. Maybe there's just a little tree kind of coming up here, kind of starting. So again, I draw my line, and then I'll just, maybe this would just be a little tree, and I'll flip it upside down to do the same thing I kind of did before. And then just give it a couple of branches, because maybe this is just a baby tree. And then what I can do is I'm gonna take, again, that same paintbrush, and I am going to get some water on that, and I'm going to just go over that black line. And I'm gonna be real careful, because again, if you just go over the whole thing, it's gonna be a big black mess. But right now, if you take the tip of it and you just go over those black lines, get a little bit of water, it looks great. And again, you can take it and go like this and flip it upside down if you want, if that's easier. That way you can pull the paint down. And then you bring it out on your brush, your branches. So you can do that. And again, this is just kind of a fun way, if you don't have watercolor, to experiment with the ink and the marker and water. But you can't worry about if it's not perfect, because quite often the watercolor will bleed a little bit and make a bigger mark. So you just gotta be okay with that. And then if you wanted to add just a little bit of like some lines back here, a little bit of, you know, a shadow, you could do that. And then just go over it like one time. And then again. And that is kind of how you would do a landscape scene with marker and water. I can't wait to see what you guys have. See you later.